fact, that is one of the first things that we had to do when we went to the fire academy. We had to navigate an obstacle course with all of our equipment on, with our masks blacked out. We had to navigate it by touch. So we had all the equipment on. We were on air, and you have to navigate by touch. Because the way it operates, if we're inside of a fire structure and all hell breaks loose, you can't see if there, because it's like there's no visibility. So the rule is you take the fire hose and you just trace it back out, because the fire hose goes back to the fire engine. That's your trail of breadcrumbs. So the first week you do what's called mass confidence. You have to go through all the equipment on air, and sometimes your instructors, they can see you going through the course, but you don't know this at the time. They're right above you watching you, and they'll hook your equipment to get you stuck, and you have to, without seeing, you got to know how to get yourself out by touch. And then there's some points where you have to get through these real tiny spaces. You got to know how to take your air bottle off and squeeze through the spaces and put the air bottle on. It's the theory of condensation, and that weeds out the people that have anxiety. It's one thing getting into tight spaces, but when you can't see and you got the mask on your face and you feel like you can't breathe, you gotta talk yourself down. Otherwise, you'll learn real quick what a demon circuit whispering devil sounds like.
Yes, sir. Wow.
I hated that. I hate that.
Ooh, praise be to Allah.
To this day, I still don't like it.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we hadn't connected that dot, Sister Jacqueline and I, with the closed in space and that condensation there.
That's the theory of condensation. Yes, ma'am.
And
space
Brother
Luke, to you.
Brother Larry and I was talking about those scans, those body scans that you go into, the X-ray scans.
On the airports?
Is that what they're called? No,
at
the hospital, the body
MRI.
The MRI, yes, sir.
Sometimes people got to get medicated to go in there.
Oh, really?
Sometimes people have to take Valium because it reduces the anxiety, because the tight spaces will cause someone to have a panic attack.
And we went to the tone scale, and we said that, I said, I think Brother Larry agreed that it brought up a lot of fear in us, because we felt like very claustrophobic. So we went to the tone scale and looked at fear.
You're on mute, Brother Larry.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Sister Jacqueline said that, like me, she's going to do an open MRI next time instead of a closed MRI.
Oh, did you have that experience, Sister Jacqueline?
The closed MRI, yes, sir. And it was horrible. It was terrifying to me, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I told him, I said, it was taking too long. I said, I can't take this. No.
Sister Jacqueline, tear that whole office up, right?
I think Sister Belinda said it feel like you're in a closed casket.
Yeah.
It's enclosed. Yeah.
And
the top is like right here on your face.
Right.
You know. Yeah, sometimes you got to take medication in order to get through that.
Yeah, if I need to take medication to get through it, then I don't need it.
Yeah, I had one, and I had an allergic reaction. Well, it was a contrast MRI, the contrast dye. I call myself not allergic to anything that I knew of until I had that MRI dye put in me. And I mean, I talk about close the office down. I closed the office down due to the reaction of the dye. They had to, they couldn't see any more patients. They had to watch me for like an hour, and I was swelling. It was crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was bad.
They gave you Benadryl?
Yes, sir. So now I have the whole MRI dye allergy alert thing going on in my life.
So, Brother Lukman, those kind of emotions, that anxiety and the fear and the terror culminated at one time. How do you define that?
Say what?
How do you define that, the culmination of all those fears at one time?
Hell. That's the shock of the hour.
Okay. Yeah, that's
The
hell.
shock of
That's
the
hell.
hour.
Yes,
Because
sir.
I mean, you know, for real, when you look at that, when you have an individual, what goes through an individual's mind right before they walk into any location and just start firing up the place? It's a collection. Let's look at it like this. When you look at Lost Found Muslim lesson number 2, question number 8, what makes rain, hail, snow, earthquake? You can use that same concept. It is emotion that gathers together in a fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect. It's everything coming in at one time.
Yes,
And then
sir.
what happens is all that fear distills back. It distills back. I had a situation similar to that. I must be a co-host because I'm seeing people coming in.
You are.
Okay. We had a fire back in 2012 that I almost quit. I almost said, bump this, I don't want to do this anymore. It was pitch black. The fire was, we were on the 3rd floor. The fire was in the attic above us, and you can feel the heat getting hotter. I got bumped off the wall because you use the wall as a guidepost because you know exactly where you are if you stay after the wall. I got bumped off the wall and I'm sitting there and I had no landmark. And the first thing that goes through your mind is I can't breathe, and you want to rip your mask off, but if you rip your mask off, you're dead. As Allah is my witness, it was like a voice in my head said, calm down, go to your right. And I just went like this. I kept going to the right. And I got to the wall. I realized where I was. I got to the hallway and I could see where I was. It was like a little voice talking to me. When I told you, when I tell you, when I got outside, I almost cried like a little child. That scared the hell out of me.
Yes, sir.
So I can understand what you went through in that MRI. It's all this stuff coming in at one time and you have no idea how to deal with it.
Yes, sir. Wow.
That's terrifying.
All right, we're right at 10. Are you able to open us up in prayer, Brother Lukman?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
Attention prayer. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the beneficent and merciful, surely I am being turned to thee, O Allah, trying to be upright. To him who originated the heavens and the earth, and I am not of the polytheists. Surely my prayer, my sacrifice, my life, and my death are all for Allah, Lord of the worlds. No associate has he. This am I commanded, and I am of those who submit. O Allah, thou art the King, there is no God but thee. Thou art my Lord, and I am thy servant. I have been greatly unjust to myself and do confess my faults. Please, Allah, grant me protection against my faults, for none grants protection against faults but thee. Please guide me to the best of morals, for none can guide to the best of morals but thee. And please turn away from me the evil and indecent morals, for none can turn away from me the evil and indecent morals but thee. O Allah, bless Muhammad and bless the true followers of Muhammad. As I has blessed Abraham and the true followers of Abraham. Surely thy praise and magnified. O Allah, make Muhammad successful and make the true followers of Muhammad successful. As thou didst make Abraham successful and the true followers of Abraham successful. For surely thou art to be praised and magnified. Ameen.
Ameen. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum, Sister Patricia, Sister Charlotte, Brother Rashid.
Wa alaikum salam.
Wa alaikum salam, family.
Wa alaikum salam.
Okay, we're gonna go jump right in. share my screen, hopefully. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so we are very, very excited to have you all here. We hope that you're going to feel that same energy. This series is a collaboration between our lovely brother Luqman and the SDW team. And the goal, we're going to parse each position on the emotional tone scale. Brother Luqman, I don't know if you got Sister Jacqueline's email or even had a text or even had a chance to send that out. I see you're at work. We didn't realize you were at work today.
I got it about 5 minutes before I got on the camera.
Okay, yes, sir. And what we're going to do, we're going to eventually, everyone will get a email with the tone scale if you don't have it. So we're going to try and find the correlation with the teachings. And the purpose is to identify the emotions, which in turn will help us to rise above them into the thinking of God. We're going to identify them in self first and then in others, and be it the will of Master Prophet Muhammad, we're going to marry it, the tone scale and the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And of course, in the teachings, we've been charged to rise above emotions into the thinking of God. So in order to do that, we're going to have to recognize the emotions, and that will give us self-improvement and community development. Okay, so once we figured that we were going to work on the tone scale, so a question came up with me was emotions versus feelings, and was there a difference? And one of the definitions I found was, while emotions start as sensations in the body, feelings are generated from our thoughts about those emotions. Or in other words, feelings are how we interpret emotions and let them sink in. We use the word feel for both physical and emotional states. Now, when I read that to Sister Jacqueline, and she had a question. You want to share that question, Sister Jacqueline? Do you remember what your question was?
Yes, ma'am. My question was, what is a sensation? How does a sensation feel, and more or less, how do you identify a sensation? And that's where the Godfather came in with his wisdom.
That's a good one. So, Brother Luqman, do you want to go into what you gave us on sensation, or?
Sure. And I think if Sister Jacqueline doesn't mind, I could probably tie it in with her experience.
Absolutely. My experience as well as Brother Larry's experience. He had the
Okay.
same experience as well. Yes, sir.
I think we can marry them both together.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So what we had spoke about was the way the brain works. You have 12 pair of cranial nerves. So these are nerves that extend off the brainstem, and they are charged with what we see, our taste, movement of our head, movement of our jaw, our feeling and whatnot. And what happens is, if there's 12 pair of cranial nerves, then for those that weren't in the discussion yesterday, how many total nerves would we have if we have 12 pair? Anyone? Come on, scientists. 12 pair would be how many?
24.
24. So that means you have 12 that go out, and these are called the sensory neurons, and they get a sense of what's taking place in the environment. So the sensory neurons can identify differences in temperature, differences in taste, things that we touch, things in the environment. And then the nerves that come back actually record what was sensed. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes,
just
sir.
like we have the 12 major scientists and the 12 minor scientists, you have the 12 that get the information from the people, and you got those that record it and then judge it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then we sit as the one over the circle of the 24 contained within ourselves. So now when you look at what does that have to do with emotions and feelings, the feeling is, when you're in a situation like an MRI machine, you get the feeling of being enclosed, and that, we could say, produces the emotion. Would that make sense?
Mm. Yes, sir.
So, because some people can be in an MRI and it doesn't affect them. So it's based on perception. But now, here's a thought that just pops in my head. That could be based on something else that was experienced in the past. Some of us had older brothers and sisters that like to play jokes and lock us in suitcases and all kinds of, crazy stuff like that. So that could be a sign of something else on the time track. But the basic definition, or the basic, at least the way I'm understanding it, between emotion and feeling is, the feeling is what we sense, what's taking place, and the emotion is how we're interpreting it.
Yes, sir.
Brother Lukman, can I add to that, please?
Oh, you gotta ask Sister Belinda. It's not my.
Sister, oh, I'm sorry, I came on late, so I'm kind of in the middle of everything. I'm sorry, Sister Belinda.
No,
You're fine, beloved. We're just messing with you, sister. Go right ahead, beloved.
Yes, ma'am. Y'all explaining exactly what happened to me, and I thought of, I know we don't want to waste thought, when the minister talked about that bull, and he had to face his fear, right? So a sister had approached me trying to comfort me. And so what I did immediately was check my heart. I wanted to see if I was afraid, but I couldn't feel my heart. So, when you're afraid, or like you're about to go on a ride or something, your heart starts beating real fast. So this sister was testing me. And so I said, all right, let me see if I'm a fear of this, right? And so I couldn't feel my heartbeat. So I was like, hold on, let me see if I can. So I kept testing it. And so that brought out so that right there made me feel the emotion at first. So, and then now after that, the feeling that came over me was, I wish you would now, So it wasn't fear. I was always taught, you ain't make me, you can't break me type of thing. So can't nobody pump fear in you. But so that's how I kind of separated the emotion versus feeling, because I had to feel what she was saying, how that made me feel emotionally. And then the afterthought feeling was I could dismiss it. It didn't take over me. I was able to control that scenario.
Yes, praise be to Allah. Beautiful.
Oh man, did y'all hear me?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I had a call coming in, and then my speaker was off. Were y'all able to hear me or no?
No, we heard
Oh,
you.
yes.
Oh, okay. I'm going back out real quick.
Okay, yes, babe. Thank you for that. Anyone else knows emotions, feelings? Okay, want to go on here?
Sister Patricia's got her hand up.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, can the nerve system play a part in this? I'm hearing this conversation about the MRI, which is really ironic because I just try to have one. And I thought it was because my nerve system is not strong right now. where certain things irritated, loud noises or repetition, boom, stuff like that. And because sometimes you want to make sure what is what, because if the nerve system is not as strong, then wouldn't your emotions and stuff also be affected if the nerve system is not correct? I mean, not strong, I mean weak.
I would think so, especially based on what Brother Lukeman explained about the actual sensory.
Mhm.
Anyone else on that with more
I can
data?
I can add to that based on how to eat to live. If I'm not mistaken, the Most High Elijah Muhammad said that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's 2 foods he said you can eat over and over again. I think that was garlic and onions.
Yes, sir.
If I'm not mistaken, he said onions will strengthen the nerves. I'll see if I can find that actual fact before we end our session. But I think if that's being the case, increase in increasing the onions in the diet would increase the nerves.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
I'll try to find that.
Two of my favorite foods. Okay, let's see here. Okay, now we're gonna.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
Sister Patricia,
yes, ma'am.
hand is up. Do you have something else to add, Sister Patricia?
Oh, no, ma'am, I didn't bring it down. I apologize.
All right, thank you, beloved.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little about some of the facts of the emotional tone scale. And I wish Sister Peggy was here, because she brought up the question about the negative tone scale position. So how can there be emotions after body death, which is 0.0 on the emotional tone scale? And what we found was, according to the Scientology handbook, the tone scale starts on utter, dead, null, far below death itself, and goes up to improved tones that one encounters. And it said body death is at the bottom of the scale and is described as a state where a person acts like they are actually dead or could actually be unconscious. So her question was, how can we have all of these emotions such as failure, pity, shame, and they all be below body death? So this explained that the person's state of mind is depicting a body death and not an actual physical death. But I wish she was here. I don't know who else was on that particular Zoom, and we struggled with that. So this is some mass on that. Anyone have any questions on the body death dilemma? Yes, ma'am.
Break that down, please. The body death.
So on the tone scale, body death was at 0.0. And so you have all these other emotions below body death. So in our minds, when we hear body death, the person is physically dead. So how can you have an emotion after body death? So we did the research, and in one of the books, Scientology handbook, it stated that body death is at the bottom of the scale and is described as a state where a person acts like they are actually dead. So they're not physically dead. So it's like a state of mind.
Oh, okay.
Likened to the mentally dead.
So is that like a shutdown of all your surroundings and where, because the reason I'm trying to understand this, because when we talk about health, as this brother was just speaking on, if your levels in your body, the minerals and the vitamins that we are created in, the CAB, all that, if it's low, your reception is not going to be strong. So when we get into the mindset, and I was studying this because it goes back into like diabetes and dementia and Alzheimer's. You know, when you got those low minerals and vitamins in your body, then your body is not going to respond like it's created to be, because the levels has gotten so low, because most of it have been depleted, maybe from, not eating properly, how to eat to live again. So, you want to distinguish, is it the minerals and bodies that I need to increase to make my mindset get into the level of not being dead? Or is it going back and pulling out? I mean, could it be both of that? Going back and pulling out what has distracted you over the time of your life. Do that make sense?
Yeah, I think if I understand you correctly, I think you would have to have the balance. You need the balance of the physical needs of the body and the mental needs. If I understood where you were coming from. Were you asking one or the other, or?
Well, I'm not trying to dismiss Dianetics, but I'm trying to say that if we made that much stronger, the body, the minerals and the vitamins in our body much stronger, then we can kind of erase some of the things that Dianetics supposed to help, not erase, but pull out what Dianetics is supposed to do. You have so many helpers, like Dianetics supposed to help pull out the things that is preventing you from going forward or being who you're supposed to be. And then it seemed like also the vitamins that is lacking in our body and the minerals is stopping you also.
Yeah, I would agree. And then I think nothing trumps what the God brought, how to eat to live. But this is just helping us balance that, because we can do how to eat to live. And then if our thoughts are wrong, then we're still going to have some issues. But,
okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I hear what you said now. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome, beloved. Anyone else on that point before we go to Sister Charlotte? Hey, yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Brother Luke.
This is Charlotte. Was this a comment on what we were just talking about? That way you can go ahead if you have.
It kind of is. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So the subpar tone scales, we're relating them to a physical or an emotional state. So that body death, when we're dealing with people that we find that are below, below the 0.0 on the tone scale, we're assuming that's a mental death, obviously, and not a physical death.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And according to that Scientology handbook, the person, they're acting as though they are actually dead.
Okay.
But there's no physical death. And we had this discussion, and we believe that these below 0.0 is depicting the state of the Black man in America. And I know, Brother Lukeman, you're probably gonna hit us with some of that, so I'm gonna let you go for it.
Yes, ma'am. 2 quick points. I'll address that one first. In our discussion yesterday, if you look at the characteristics below 0.0, they line up almost perfectly, if not perfectly, to the condition of the Black community. I'm almost like line by line. You can go through each line, and if you drive through the hood, you can see individuals that would be demo kits for each level below 0.0. That's the first thing. The second thing, with going back to what Sister Patricia said with regards to diet, one of the things that they teach in Scientology, and this is what we had learned when we went through the Pure back here a couple of years ago, is that certain toxins in the body that accumulate over time can deplete the vitamins and minerals in the body that would cause what would appear to be the mental illnesses that would be described at the lower parts of the tone scale. So the diet could produce that state, but aberration could also produce the state. And I'm almost thinking that one of the things that Sister Patricia was asking about, could the lower states be a result of aberration or diet, or could possibly be both? Now, when you look at what takes place during the purif, there you're getting high dosages of vitamins and minerals over the course of anywhere from 10 days to 2 weeks. And you are sweating out the toxins, because the one thing that LRH spoke about was when you look at the toxins that we have accumulated over time, that's part of the reason why we keep falling back into aberration, because of these toxins that are stored in our body. I'll say a weird aspect of the purif, but it was an interesting aspect of the purif, and this happens to different people. Different people will have different experiences where they will sweat out, or different chemicals would actually come out of their body. After 3 or 4 days of the purif, I had a black tar-like substance come from my body that smelled like smoke. But then again, that's just based on all the years I've done these fires. I've accumulated the toxin in my body. It was a black tarry substance that smelled like smoke that actually came from my body. 2 of the key ingredients that they give you during the purif is high dosages of thiamine and niacin. That's 2 of the key elements in the Church of Scientology that they say help to purify the body. Well, guess where you find thiamine and niacin in How to Eat to Live?
Maybe bean.
Bean soup and wheat bread. So really, How to Eat to Live, 1 meal a day, is like a purif over a period of time, whereas the purif of Scientology, that's a high dose concentrated purif that you do within, on the average, it's about 2 weeks. Every day, there's not a day break in between, but every day you take these high dosages, and then slowly you're weaned off and you sweat out the toxins. And I can tell you that after those 10 days, I think we did either 10 or 12 days, I felt like a new person. Part of my aberrations weren't even present. And I could see that it had to do something with the diet, the foods, the additives, the preservatives that are in the food that actually is causing some of the aberrations that we contain, that we possess.
Praise be to Allah, yes, sir. Thank you for that, Sister Tina.
Yes, ma'am. I was attempting to look up the word catatonic, and I couldn't find it because I really, I guess I wasn't spelling it properly. But that below zero state, was that being a catatonic state? A physical, if you're talking about a physical state, because I understand the mental part of it, the state of mind. It's like a person is so filled with, so beneath apathy that they're as if dead, but on a physical sense, could that be the same as in a catatonic state?
I need to parse catatonic before I can answer.
It's catatonic, catatonic.
Catatonic, that's why I couldn't find it, okay.
Sometimes if you go into a nursing home, or if you go into a mental ward and you have a person just sitting there and they're not responding to questions, they're not talking, they're not doing nothing, they're in a catatonic state.
That's right.
That means there's no response. You won't be able to audit, you won't be able to do nothing. Their body's there, but they're not present.
So is that below death, negative 40 and all of that? Is that what that is? They're in that area?
It could be, but if you look at the tone scale below 0.0, and then look at where we either used to live or where we still live, you'll see individuals, and I'll say they're in a catatonic state, but they're moving around.
Mm. Mm. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, praise be to Allah. Is there something in the chat? 'Cause I can't see the chat. Sister Jacqueline, is there
Brother
something in
Larry, Brother Larry hand is up, sis.
there? Okay, yes, sir. Yeah,
I'm
go ahead,
sorry.
and if I don't respond, go ahead and tell them to,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
I got somebody trying to get in the meeting. I'm sending an email.
Right. Brother
Amen.
Larry, I'm sorry. Sister Tina, your hand is up, beloved. Are you still speaking? You still have something to say, sis? Sister Tina? Okay, we're going to move on. Brother Larry, you're up, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I
No,
was
ma'am.
thinking about the football player for the Buffalo Bills. When he passed out or was knocked out on the football field, it was presumed that he was dead, but he was brought back to life. Now, was that body death, or, is it body death is at the bottom of the scale and describes the state where a person acts like they're actually dead or could actually be unconscious. The football player was unconscious and he was dead on the football field, but he was brought back to life. And my question is, which one is it? Is it maybe Brother Luke could, Sister Belinda and Brother Luke could look at that situation using the tech.
Okay, so you were saying he was, so that's
He,
two
he was
different
on the
things. Unconscious and then
right.
dead, and then they brought him back.
Yes.
Where-
That's
You want me to address that, Sister Belinda?
Yes, sir.
In the medical profession, a person is not dead until there's a cessation of brain activity. What happened to that football player? If you go back and you watch the footage, he took a helmet to the chest.
yes, sir.
And what happened is a helmet to the chest will disrupt the cardiac rhythm of the heart and can cause what's called we call it VTAC, or not VTAC, but VFib, ventricular fibrillation, and it causes an irregular heartbeat. And what happens is the heart is going crazy. The heart is aberrated, but no blood is being pumped at that time. So the person, it technically is not dead yet. They're just unconscious. And they did the CPR. They probably shocked them with they did the cardiac resuscitation and brought him back. But he technically was not physically dead. He was just unconscious.
Okay.
When a person is dead, the definition is the cessation of like if a person's on a vent and the vent is just keeping the body breathing, it looks like the person's breathing, but it's the machine that's breathing for them, but there's no mental activity.
The
That
ventilator.
person is dead.
Okay.
But just to
Thank
get
you.
that heart, his hit was just he was unconscious as a result of lack of blood flow.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we got Godfather, Doctor, DJ.
All in one, all in one.
Say, go ahead, Blackman.
Yes, ma'am. The God
Listen,
is wearing them all.
my father would not permit me to hang out in the streets, and I always had my head in a book somewhere. So it paid off. I'm grateful and thankful that I had a curfew of 9:30, even up until I thought grown, but I had a curfew. I couldn't hang out in the streets.
Praise be to Allah. Say, we thank your parents. Okay, any more on body death? Yeah, body death is inshallah, Sister Peggy will get the replay. All right, we're gonna go to some more facts about this tone scale. So the full tone scale goes from 40 to -40. And with, once again, our our godfather, we found out that there's actually 59 gradients. When you get your tone scale, it's actually 59 positions from the top to -40. And the 59th position takes us to our actual subject today, is total failure. And we define total failure. One of the definitions, total failure refers to a complete and comprehensive lack of success or achievement in a particular endeavor or objective. It implies that every aspect or component of the undertaking has been unsuccessful or ineffective, resulting in a complete lack of desired outcomes or results. A total failure suggests that no part of the effort was able to fulfill its intended purpose or meet the expected standards. It is an expression used to describe a situation where there is an absolute absence of success or accomplishment. And just reading that, it could give you a key in. Oh, Allah. So, but total failure being the 59th position on the tone scale, it took us to the 59th surah. And this is where Sister Jacqueline is going to go ahead and take over for us.
Yes, ma'am. Sister Jacqueline is going to take over the reading of the slides. Thank you very much, Sister Belinda.
You said to make that clear.
Total failure minus 40.0. Surah 59 is titled The Banishment. Banishment in the Arabic word is hashir, means to pack, squeeze, press, or force. In the asterisk, see Theory on Condensation, Scientology 8-8008 on page 25. Condensation increase as one descends down the tone scale. And we'll get into some conversation on the condensation. As condensation increases, so does aberration. Back to you, Sister Belinda.
You don't want to read? Okay, I guess you can't see it. You don't have it pulled up to read the theory of condensation?
No, ma'am, it isn't here for me.
Sister Belinda, can I make one point on this?
Sure.
Could you go back one slide to the definition of total failure?
Yes, sir.
As you were reading this, the thought that came to my mind was, this is one of the reasons why we don't study science, we don't study math, we don't study chemistry. We avoid anything dealing with what we would consider difficult subjects. Because if you read that definition for total failure and you input the concept of mathematics, physics, or science, some of us avoid math and science because I believe in that particular area of our life, we are at a -40 on that subject.
I would agree. We perceive it, even though we might not even be there. It's just back to that fear. We failed, had an attempt and failed, and just we were done with mathematics.
The teacher embarrassed us in class. Our friends made fun of us. We had to go up to the chalkboard. That was for those of us before dry erase. We had to go up to the chalkboard. And we knew on the way up there that we didn't do the homework. And we got there and just thought that we were gonna somehow just make up something that was gonna be correct. The teacher might have invalidated us. And we already knew as soon as we turned around, the kids are gonna be sitting there smirking and making fun of us. And then they label us as being dumb or stupid. So now we say, I don't want nothing to do with mathematics or science.
You're right.
You called me out like that, Brother Lukman. And it was algebra. I tried my best to dodge it. I took all kind of science classes because when I seen those A's and Z's, I said, oh, no, no, no. I already done told myself I couldn't do it. So when I told myself I couldn't do it, see, we talking about the mindset, you know, and I didn't do it. And I dodged it and I dodged it. And then when I got to college, they like, oh, I see you didn't have a credit in this. I said, what? We still working on that now? And I had to take it up in college. I said, oh my God, I thought I had got it done. But then I had a wonderful instructor. He told me mentally, stop saying what you can't do. He said, look at this. He said, look how this is done. And when he showed me how to do it and I applied it, I came out of there with a B+. I said, wow, I was so shocked because I was telling my mind, I can't do this. And that mind overpowered. And we're talking about the feelings again, you know. I seen it as being really foreign. I said, oh no, what the heck? A is equal to Z. What the heck? What's this? This was in high school. And but see, there was other stuff distracting too when we talk about the mindset again. If you got other stuff in the path, you can't really see what's in front of you. You know, things on your left, things on your right. I understand why they put the bridles on them horses. You know, stay focused, look forward, you know. This is a beautiful thing we're having this morning because I think I'm getting on it.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. Straight wire sessions in session.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Praise be to Allah. Yes. And when you describe that walk up to the chalkboard, I mean, I was in the chalkboard era. And
yes, ma'am.
And I never had to go to the chalkboard like that. I would just cower, you know, and I could hide well enough because the classes were large enough where I could just hide and not have to do that walk of shame. You know? Yes, sir. Praise be to God. Okay, so on this theory of condensation, I'm going to read it. It's a little wordy, a little heady, but we'll get through it.
If you're able to share with Mrs. Blaine, I don't mind reading it. I don't have access to it.
Yeah, it doesn't share. The notes don't share on the share screen. So it reads, the physicist has adequately demonstrated that matter seems to be composed of energy which has become condensed in certain patterns. It can also be demonstrated adequately. Whoa. Sorry, my screen moved. It can also be demonstrated adequately in Scientology that energy seems to be produced by and to emanate from theta. Thus, it can be considered that theta producing energy condenses the space in which the energy is contained, which then becomes matter. This theory of condensation is borne out by an examination of a state of aberration of many preclears who have been found to have descended down the tone scale to the degree that their own space has been contracted, and who were found to be surrounded by ridges and who are thus solid to the degree that they are aberrated. Further, they can be found to be an effect in the ratio that they are so solidified. Further, a psychotic treats words and other symbols, including his own thoughts, as though they were objects. Now, earlier before the session started, we were talking about being inside of an MRI machine, the enclosed one. And Brother Lukeman was explaining to us if that stirred up fear, which is 1.0, despair, terror, all these low tone emotions, and they all happen simultaneously. So that was, if I'm saying it correct, condensed emotions. So this is one of the examples of the condensation theory. Now, Brother Lukeman, if you want to give us some more mass on that.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Most
Get that
definitely.
up a little bit. Yes, sir.
Definitely. We have seen the shows that talk about hoarders.
Yes, sir.
And 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, a hoarder is an individual. If you see those homes, that's a lack of space, right? So they have a home that has a lack of space because they can't let go of things. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Each
sir.
one of those things they're holding on to is something from their time track, which means their home is a demo kit showing, is an outward demo kit showing that they are stuck on the time track at various points on the time track, because everything means something, which is why they won't throw anything away.
Hoarders.
Wow.
So aberration is the same thing. It's just that we're hoarding things internally. Does that make sense? Because that outward environment is only an outward representation of what's going on inside their mind. Inside the mind, everything on the outside represents, they collect this because that reminds them of when their daughter was born, and this reminds when the husband was this. Usually hoarders live alone and their family has either moved on, the husband or the wife has passed away. So that's what really aberration could be seen as on another level. We're hoarding things from our time track that have no more relevance or significance in our mind now.
I knew it was a mental thing, a hoarder.
Yes. And then another example we had thought about, when I say we, me and Sister Jacqueline were talking, and the amount of information from social media.
Yes.
You've got it repeated visually, sonically, and so it's like condensed and overwhelmed the senses. And so you have a condensation of all that, which we felt occluded the individual into the really seeing even better ways to live and not be in the filth and whatever's going on in this world. So we saw that as an example of condensation. Yes, ma'am, Sister Patricia.
You, in your reading you just did, you said something about the space was condensant. Is that what you said? The space was condensant?
Was condensed, I think
Condensed.
I said.
What do that mean when you say that?
If you have a, I don't know, maybe like a 10 by 10 area, and like he's saying with the hoarding, so it's condensed, it's packed. The space is packed with things or thoughts, just depending on what space we're talking about, mental space or actual physical space. But it's condensed with the amount of, and matter of fact, he gave us a molecular.
Can I give a demo kit?
Yeah.
Like no means of egress, maybe?
It's and I might be taking a risk on saying it like this, but I'm gonna say it like this. When men and women go on a trip, usually sisters will condense their luggage more so than men. They'll try to fit more stuff in a suitcase than a man will.
Than physics allow.
Is that a stable datum or?
Very stable.
Yeah, sisters will have, now you're going away for 3 days. a sister might have 10 outfits just in case. And every outfit has to have its own pair of shoes, right?
Yes, sir.
Or brother might bring 2 pair of jeans, a pair of sweats, and because that's condensation. You try to increase certain things in a smaller space.
So when you said that, Sister Belinda, so when the space is condensed, that means nothing else there is, it's not, can be too much input, and that's where the problem's at.
Right.
Right, especially with the mind. Yes,
the mind.
Yeah, the mind I'm talking about. Yes,
yes, ma'am. Oh,
thank you.
no more room for for truth. It's filled with everything in the world,
And that's why some people won't listen to you when you have advice. Their mind is already dense. There's no more room for no new data. I don't want to hear that. Don't tell me that. I got my own opinion. I don't want to hear that. Mine is already dense. No more room for no other viewpoints.
Yes. So here's another example that, and this will sound familiar to you, Brother Lukeman. He said, here's how it works. Solid, liquid, and gas. Like the minister gives us, animal, human, divine.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you have solid, liquid, and gas, you have the same material, but just a different energy level. So gas, the molecules are free to move in more space. As you compress that gas, it becomes liquid. What you're doing is taking away the space. If you're going from liquid to solid, what you're doing is the particles are moving, but moving in less space. So what you have is what is called condensation. As our beingness begins to lose space, that increases our aberration. And one of the examples was used was a cluttered car, cluttered house, and of course that hoarder really paints the picture of a condensed space. And this theory deals with us having space as a being. As we increase our space, we increase our beingness. And I thought that was excellent, Brother Lukeman, Godfather. So do we have anything else on condensation? Any questions, any examples we can think of?
I was just going to ask Brother Lukeman, could he just expound on that just a little more?
When a person is condescending,
yes,
they're taking away our space.
Oh, Allah.
Why are you talking to me like that? What are you doing? You're actually taking away my space. You're suppressing me. You're look at the word. You're belittling me. That means you're acting as a counter effort. You're trying to make me feel less than what I really am. So condescending and condensation. In the word condescending, you still have the word density.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes people say stuff to make us try to feel like we're stupid. What are you doing? You're being condescending.
Wow. That is excellent. Anyone else on condensation?
Sister Tina, you have the floor, sis.
So what Brother Lukeman just said, the thought that came to my mind was someone invalidating another.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect example.
Well, there's something else, and please forgive me because it takes me a while to find books if I'm not pre-prepared and I randomly have to look for something. But when you were talking about condensation and contracting, it made me think of one of the definitions of flow. And I'm not able to get to it, but it had to do with contracting and lengthening. And when I was thinking about the room full of stuff, a hoarder full of stuff, I could see how that's contracting. Things are being, because when you contract something, you hold it, right? You hold it back. When something is contracted, it's like holding it back.
Mhm.
But when you're lengthening it, it's letting it go. My fingers, I have two fists balled up, so that's like contracting, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But if I lengthen it, I'll open up my hands, and the hands are open, so that's lengthening. So it just made me see that there's struggle in the flow. And that's the opposite of flow, according to Merriam-Webster dictionary, is struggle. So if the room is so cluttered, I can't walk around. You know, it's a struggle to walk around freely in that room, you know? But if I get rid of the clutter, then I can freely flow through the room. I can walk through the room more freely because it's lengthened. The space is lengthened out. It's no longer contracted and condensed. So that's what came through my mind and made me understand that part of flow better, the contracting and the lengthening in the definition, one of the definitions of flow. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. And as you were saying that, then it made me think of the thought that you had to have to know that you were constricted. And then the thought that you had to, once it got cleared up, that now I can flow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
How they go hand in hand. Yes, ma'am. Okay, anyone else on condensation? Okay. I'm gonna see what else we have here on total failure. Sister Jacqueline?
Yes, ma'am. Total failure, minus 40.0. This is on page 43 in the Fall of America. According to the history of Noah, the people ridiculed the very thought of Allah bringing a flood to drown them. Noah was laughed at and scorned for preaching such a doctrine. According to the Bible and Holy Quran, he was called a liar and looked upon as a crazy person. Did we have that in 2 slides, or that's it on that, Sister Belinda?
It advanced to the next slide. At least on my end, it did.
Okay. Some of the members of Noah's family joined the mockers and disbelievers of Allah and his messenger, who was Noah. They met the same fate as the others who disbelieved. The opposition of that world to the advent of a better world was a total failure.
Okay, so in the Fall of America, I found it very interesting that it was the exact phrase of total failure. And in our lessons, another lovely conversation we had. You want to speak on it, Brother Lukman? You want me to read what I have? You're on mute, brother.
This is your show. I'm just visiting.
Yes, sir.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
Okay, so I'll read it and then it'll stir up some stuff, I'm sure, for many.
Mhm.
In the lessons, we're taught that our lessons are the fulfillment of all of the previous prophets and their scriptures. And so with that, we can say that the minister would also have to be the fulfillment which means in the histories of all the prophets that were mentioned, we'll see the different aspects of the minister at different phases of his work, fulfilling what the prophets' histories were. And with this, I'm going to go back to the previous slide. And what we did, we replaced Noah with the minister. And so it would read like this: according to the history of the minister, the people ridiculed the very thought of Allah bringing a flood to drown them. The minister was laughed at and scorned for preaching such a doctrine. According to the Bible and the Holy Quran, he was called a liar and looked upon as a crazy person. Mm-hmm. And we know that's how they speak of the minister to this very day. Some of the members of the minister's family don't agree with possibly him bringing the tech as he did to the nation. They joined in on the mockery and the disbelievers of Allah and his messenger. They met the same fate as the others who disbelieved. The opposition of that world to the advent of a better world, which we believe the tech will bring in, was a total failure. So can we see how the minister fulfills the history of all of the prophets? You can take him and insert the minister, his works, and we can see how there's an equation there. Does that make any sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Could I add one point to that?
Yes, sir.
Of course.
Could you back up one slide?
Sure.
When you look at the words flood, and I can't remember them off the top of my head, but if you look at the words flood and drown in Arabic, if I'm not mistaken, we spoke about this before, but they line up with a flood, if I'm not mistaken, had to do with, like we use the term, a flood of emotions. Mm-hmm. And to be drowned also can mean to be overwhelmed. So the thought of Allah bringing a flood to drown them, you can look at what the minister said in Divine Destruction of America. He said, there's a couple of things he said in that lecture, but one of the things he said was, he said he's going to allow this man to let loose on you, to start killing you wholesale. And he, if I'm not mistaken, he mentioned the police officers. Now this is from Divine Destruction of America. I think it's from, was it 94 or 96? It's one of the, I get those two dates mixed up. I think it was 96.
I think 96.
96?
I think 96, yes.
Okay. But then he said this, he said that grief was going to be a tool that Allah was going to use during the chastisement. And then if you look at the shock of the hour, it's a grievous thing from Surah, I can't remember this, it's Surah 29. The word shock in Arabic also means grief. Allah says in the Holy Quran that he uses the trials, I think it says either trials or fire, to destroy the disbelievers, but he uses the same trials to purify the believers. So everyone has to go through periods of grief. Everyone has to, I will try it by loss of life and loss of goods and loss of property. So we all are going to encounter loss. However, Noah built an ark, correct?
Yes, sir.
A-R-K, but we were given Dianetics with A-R-C. So the minister has taught us a time is coming when grief is going to come and it's going to be so powerful. For some of us, it's going to overwhelm us. But for those of us who listen to the minister with the tech, God willing, we're not going to be overwhelmed. And that was kind of how we tied this ayat to the minister and his instructing us to study the tech.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. Sister Tina.
Yes, ma'am. And when Brother Lukman mentioned grief, it made me tie in the last part of the discussion about condensed. Grief is well, it appears to me to be a condensed emotion because it keeps you in a particular space.
Mm.
You know, I'm just stuck on missing this thing, person, life, you know, like Lot's wife. You know, she was missing Sodom and Gomorrah, so she turned back to look at it, you know, which, you know, caused her to wind up in the state she was in. But yeah, grief is a condensed state of mind. You know, I'm not allowing myself to look at the possibilities, look at Allah's will. You know, I'm not thinking about anything else but this person. The person is gone and I'm just in grief, you know. So yes, ma'am, that's what it made me think about.
Yes, ma'am. And as you said that, it made me think of like a weighty thing. And we know thoughts have weight to them. So if you're overwhelmed with those lower tone scale positions, they weigh you down. They can physically weigh you down as well as mentally.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
do agree that grief is one that we definitely have to steer clear of.
Yes, ma'am. And when you say weighty, condensed, isn't that a whole lot of little things into one thing, which makes it heavier?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, I can see.
Like a fine mist that the naked eye can hardly detect.
Yes, I can see the weight. Yes, ma'am. Weighing other than ourselves. Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
Yes, right. Alhamdulillah.
Okay.
Thank you for that. Yes, ma'am. Anyone else on?
Well, I like that win other than ourselves. That was good, sister.
That's right. Yeah, because that
Okay.
mental weight will take you out of here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying all praises due to Allah. Yes, sir.
Mm. Okay. I'm going to see what we have next. And we're going to go to the message to the black man.
Total failure, minus 40.0 continues. Page 76, message to the black man. They desire to put out the light of Allah with their mouths, but Allah will perfect his light through the polytheists may be averted. Holy Quran, Surah 61, Ayat 8. Regardless of the opponent's efforts to put out the light of truth, Islam today, their efforts will be a complete failure.
Yes, ma'am. Now, Brother Lukman, when we went back and revisited this one, we believe, let's see, the Yusuf Ali version had unbeliever, the Malana Ali version had disbeliever, the message to the black man had polytheist, and so then we were comparing some of the definitions. And of course, in Arabic, the unbelief is kafara. Is that how you pronounce it?
In Arabic, the root word is kafara, and it means
Kafara.
unbeliever, but it also means disbeliever. So a person that is a disbeliever or unbeliever, they're called a kafir.
Yes, sir. And it also meant ungrateful, to cover or hide, used to describe the infidel. Okay, and then it continues in Message to the Black Man.
Also, I just wanted to add it also lines up on the tone scale with minus 1.0.
Yes, ma'am. Do you want me to go back to that slide or?
Only if someone has a question about it.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Okay, we're still in Message to the Blackman, page 279. The opposition of that world to the advent of a better world was a total failure. So shall it be with those today who oppose the beginning of a new world of righteousness. That righteousness is Islam. In the time of Abraham and his nephew Lot, before the birth of Ishmael and Isaac, Abraham's two sons, the people mockery and haters of truth and righteousness in that part of the world. In that part of the world, they're referring to the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, had become victimized by every imaginable evil. An emphasis on imaginable evil.
Yeah, and when we heard that, we said that it was definitely the United States of America with every imaginable evil going on. Let's see, we had some notes here referring to Revelations 11. And 11:8 says, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. Revelation 11 describes Babylon as Sodom and Egypt. When it describes Sodom and Egypt, Egypt represents mathematics, and we know Sodom represents what it represents. On one level, you can say that Mystery Babylon is high in technology with mathematics and science, but it is low in regards to the other things. And that was my first time hearing Sodom and Egypt.
I would like to put a thought. Let me get past this radio.
Yes, sir.
Okay. The question is this. I would like to pose this question to the believers. Where do we ever hear of our Lord being crucified in Sodom and Egypt? And which Lord are we talking about? Because Jesus wasn't crucified in Sodom and Egypt.
Right.
In this chapter, if you look at it, it's describing, in my humble opinion, what took place here in North America. Because it starts out with the two messengers standing before the God of the earth. And it said that these two had certain powers. That fire could proceed out their mouth and they would destroy their opposition. But then the dragon rose up and killed the two, and their bodies laid in the city known as Sodom and Egypt for 3 days. And the people rejoiced over them because these two people caused them a lot of problems. But it said that after the third day, the Spirit of God came back in and they stood back up again. And I always looked at that as the two being the Most High Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, and then the nation fell. People rejoiced that the nation fell. But when the minister stood back up 3 days later, or 3 years later, when he stood back up, the Most High Elijah Muhammad stood back up with him. So they both stood back up.
Mm-hmm. Praise be to Allah, because I had never, until this, the Sodom and Egypt thing, never even heard of it in the same sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And I can definitely see that correlation between the nation falling and the two standing back up.
And then it speaks of one of the messengers going up in a whirlwind. So we know who that was.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Beautiful. Anything else on that one? And this this next topic, and now Sister Tina had already felt us heading in this direction, because in this slide here it talks about Abraham's nephew Lot. And anytime we hear Lot, of course, we think about, well, the sisters anyway, think about Lot's wife. And it took us to this scripture.
Total failure, minus 40.0. Luke 9:62, the King James Version. And Jesus said unto him, no man, having put his hand to the plow and looking back, is fit for the kingdom of God.
So what was it, Sister Jacqueline, about what stirred that scripture up for you? Was it the mere mentioning of Lot?
The mere mention of looking back, the time track, the tech, getting stuck. You're constantly looking back. You can't be in present time if you're constantly looking back.
Yes, ma'am.
You're just aberrated.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and so some of us have heard Sister Ava explaining the symbolism of Lot's wife, of her turning into a pillar of salt. And say my generation knows about salt being used as a preservative for meat. And yeah, the young generation know all about that.
They don't know nothing.
Yeah, I'm claiming that young generation.
Godfather, they perpetrated.
I know, I see it.
So as you know, salt being used as a preservative, so Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt is like her being preserved in that state, and it's a memory. And then, of course, in Dianetics, that we're saying somebody's going back, keep going back and back, and get stuck in that time track in that particular environment, incident. And that was Surah 26:171. Except an old woman among those who remain behind. Anyone want to speak on the looking back?
Yes, ma'am, Sister Belinda. And what comes to mind now, looking back, as we talked about, a hoarder. A hoarder is constantly looking back, unable or not having the ability to move forward because of their past.
Yes, ma'am. And as he was talking about that hoarder earlier, I mean, I knew they were keeping a lot of stuff, but it didn't dawn on me as to why. So different stages of life or whatever's going on their time track, and they actually have a physical manifestation of it in their environment.
Physical time track.
My gosh.
Say that again, Brother Lukman.
I said a physical time track.
A physical time track. Woo. Sister Patricia, yes, ma'am.
Okay, when it said, and Jesus said unto him, no man having put his hand to the plow. Okay, how is that related to? I know you're talking about looking back, but the plow. And I try to look up the word plow. And they talk about like a tractor, whatever, but it got to mean something else also. And I'm not finding it fast enough because I look like I'm got double vision on these glasses and screen in front of me. But I'm trying to see how the plow will relate to the Dianetics.
Now, to me, when I read that, it's like putting it, that's a work instead of the physical plow. represents putting his hand to work, was what came to my mind.
Yes, yeah.
And also what comes to mind too, once you heard the teachings, you want to go back to me, that's putting your hand on the plow. You've gotten all this teaching and you have all this knowledge. Now you go back into the world. You're looking back, in my humble opinion.
Okay, thank you.
Godfather?
If you're put if you're putting your hand to the plow, which direction are you going?
Forward.
Can you go forward and backward at the same time?
No, sir.
No, sir.
That's aberrated. That's a double-minded man. To me, that's how I see it. And if
Mhm.
you're double-minded, then you're not fit for the kingdom. The scripture says that if your right hand offends you, you cut it off. If your eye offends you, you pluck it out. It's better to get into the kingdom minus a limb than to keep that and it corrupt the whole thing. So as I'm looking at that, you know, some of us are going forward, then we go backward. We're going forward, we're going backward. And if we just keep doing that, we're just not fit. But by Allah's grace, we have a merciful God that sees us in our aberrated state and still gives us mercy through the one that's in our midst today. He just is patient with us.
Yes, sir. Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. And I mean, yes, ma'am. What I want to say is on the same lines as Brother Lukman, that if you're putting your hands to the plow, you're getting ready to do some work, as you said, Sister Belinda. So you have to go forward. But if you're looking back, you're going to continuously make mistakes, you know, doing the wrong thing, cutting stuff that you shouldn't be cutting, you know.
Yes.
And God's world, the Nation of Islam does everything right and exact. So how, if we're not observing what's in front of us because we're looking back, then we're not fit for the kingdom of God, because we're not fit. We're not concentrating, observing and concentrating on doing what's in front of us in present time, so that we don't make mistakes. And if we make mistakes, we'll be able to correct mistakes, because they shall not exist. You know, they'll happen, but they won't exist because we'll see them. So it's basically the same thing I'm saying, what Brother Lukman's saying. You know, we can't do the work going forward if we're constantly looking back. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. And when you said
I don't
that,
like
two things. Oh, go ahead, sir.
No, go ahead. I'll let you finish commenting, sister.
It made me think of when you were saying you're looking back and then you're not on the straight path. If you know, you said you're doing something crooked, you're plowing in the wrong direction, and so it made me think of you're not on the straight path if you're looking back. We can't see the straight path if you're looking back.
That's
and the scripture about the dog returning to his vomit, it's such a horrible sounding scripture, but
That came to my mind too, Sister Belinda.
yes. Yes, sir. Brother Rashid.
Yeah, it reminds me, we was talking about, I'm not sure what it was, Brother Lukman, the AU units, was the attitude units?
Attention units?
Yeah, attention units. And when we discussed that, I started being more conscious about looking back. You know, as I'm thinking, as I'm in my thoughts, it's like, where am I at? And I'm thinking about something in the past, or thinking about anything that is not present time or futuristic. And I felt the tone level go down. And as we're talking about this here, going forward and going back, I think about be like on the highway driving, trying to get to a destination, You stop and you put the car in reverse, and then you go again, you go forward, you go again, you're not going to get there by looking back, by not staying in the present. It just reflects on that thought, because there really is a tone adjustment when you are in the past and not in the present.
Mhm.
Yes, sir. Anyone else on looking back?
Yeah, Sister Jacqueline here. Yeah, Sister Patricia, I think about the word plow. Oftentimes the minister would say certain words have a double entendre. So we kind of look at it in different ways, although I might need the Godfather to expound on that. We just constantly throwing him out there. Yeah, but the minister talk about double entendre, meaning this word, it has a phrase, but it had various interpretations.
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
talk about that double entendre, Brother Lukman, or perhaps the word plow?
Well, let's look at it like this. If we take out the word plow and we use any type of work, so I'll use Sister Patricia as an example. Sister Patricia, how are your cooking skills?
Is that a question or a strict question or?
No, I'm building up to something. I'm building up to something.
Oh, it's edible.
Okay. Now, if you're baking a cake, you have all the ingredients here. What type of outcome would you have if you were mixing your ingredients, but you're watching TV at the same time? You're looking back at the TV while you're measuring and blending and adding what kind of outcome would you have?
Well, I probably will miss something, or how much I poured in, or how much I was supposed to, or I'm gonna miss something. So the taste is not gonna be as it should be, because my attention wasn't into what I was supposed to be focusing on.
So the flavor is going to be aberrated. Could we say that?
Yes.
Okay. If a person is cutting wood and they have a table saw, what happens if they're trying to cut the wood but they're looking back at the TV? What could potentially happen?
A crooked line.
They could lose a finger, right?
Yeah, that too.
And if a person's driving and they're looking back at their cell phone, I mean, I see this because we have car accidents every day, and it's really their attention was distracted because of the cell phone.
Yes, sir.
So you can take this and use it as a formula, and where it says the word plow, input anything that we're doing in life. If we have something we have to focus on, but we're looking at something over here, the outcome is going to be aberrated. That's for anything.
And by you saying that, I'm looking at these definitions of that and just picking out, because you don't want to read the whole 5 to 7, 8 paragraphs. But it was talking about the something about the shoot. It was speaking of a new and I was when everyone was talking, I was like, oh, okay, now I see the connection of that word to the Dianetics, because it was saying about you're taking up the grass, you're pulling out things that is in the way of you're making this digging. I'm trying to look. I can't multitask real good. I was trying to find out what it was saying about the new level of land in this definition. And then I was like, oh, okay. Oh, here it is. It says, it's called the head. Okay, it says the earliest was the bow iron, which consists of a draft pole or a beam. And it was talking about what they use. And the vertical point stick called the head, or the body, and the end being the stilt, which is the handle. Then it was talking about dragging through the topsoil to cut in shallow furrow. And then it's talk about to clear new land, clear new land. So when you're saying clear new land, you're actually producing or growing or manifesting. So I was just trying to put that one word, because it talks about if you can't understand that one word, you don't understand nothing at all. So that's why I was wondering about that word. Now I'm looking and listening at the same time, so I have understanding now. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Brother Bookman?
No, I was just gonna say, as the sister was speaking, what I saw was when you're plowing the land, and I think the minister might have spoken about this a while ago. What you're doing is you are, and the Arabic word is falah, come to the cultivation that leads to success. When we say hayya ala falah.
Mhm.
So when you're plowing, you're cultivating. And when you're cultivating, you're loosening up the soil and you're removing the knots to prepare a way. You're clearing, there's the word. You're clearing the land to allow the planting in order to bring forth new growth and new development. In Arabic, the word is falah. So it's like, if we're doing the work to clear our mind, to remove the weeds, to remove the things that would be detrimental to life, and then we turn back and we're looking back, it's like those of us, and I'm guilty of this, who will go through a couple of days of working out and then eating properly, and then one day falls, and then I just lose it, and I fall off my diet, and I put back all the calories that I just worked off. We do the work to better ourselves, but it's just the environment we live in. But then we look back at the things that we used to do and fall back into old habits. That was what came to mind.
Yes, sir. Sister Tina?
Yes, Sister Patricia, I really appreciate the question and what you just said, because it's making me think about that verse even more. And what you just said, plow to prepare the land for the new. And God's kingdom is new, because we've been living in Satan's world for all this time. So God's kingdom is new. So how can we prepare for the new, continuously looking back? And our attention, as brother said, our attention units are on the old. So we're constantly looking back. I remember reading where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, I'm paraphrasing, that nothing of this world will exist in the new except our principles of belief in Islam, or the 5 pillars of faith. So nothing of this world will exist in the new. I'm paraphrasing, but yes, ma'am. Thank you, Sister Patricia, for that.
Thank you to Sister Tina and Sister Zakira, please. And I apologize for not recognizing your hand earlier. Sister Zakira.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm a prime example on looking back, staying back. I used to have a saying, I'm so far behind, I think I'm first, because I always stayed in that moment or in that reality. And I realized that when we become complacent, it's like giving birth. The child can't stay in the wombs. You have to come out. But when we get comfortable and stay in that place, we don't grow. And so with myself and just my life in general, you're prone, I felt like I was prone to more accidents because I wasn't in present time or on my proper time track or timeline, I should say. So it's not a good place to be at if we are in struggle. We know it's ordained. And so I think the more we keep moving or coming out of that comfort zone, it will allow us to grow. And even though we don't see it or feel it because we're so comfortable staying complacent or, staying back. But that was just my thoughts. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Beautiful thoughts, Sister. Beautiful. Sister Belinda.
I was just saying praise be to Allah. Yeah, my internet went out there for a minute. There's something in the chat. I was trying to read the chat. Back to the Surah 26:171, except an old woman among those who remain behind, Lot's wife. We had gotten some Arabic intel on behind. And I can't, yes. And it meant in Arabic, bygone, dust covered. And then I had a visual of Lot's wife covered in salt, looking dusty, a grudge, resentment, and grudge was rancor, and grudge and rancor can be overt or covert hostility. And holding a grudge, we know, holds us in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And forgiveness is what wipes away that grudge. Did we have anything else on? Looking back, Lot's wife, the plow. Yeah, thank you, Sister Patricia, for that, because that really gave some more insight on the plow.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else? Do we have any questions, comments?
I definitely have a question.
Yes, sir.
How did you set up your Zoom to have all the screens on the side of the board and not blocking your PowerPoint?
How did you know that? Okay, so when the presenter's view goes all the way across the screen, you can, it's not minimized, it's the box next to minimize. You know, you have a little line to minimize it, and then so that box, when I click it, I just drug it over a little bit with the cursor. Is that making sense?
No, it made perfect sense. I've been trying to figure out how to do that, and that's one of the reasons why I use two screens, because I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Now I do two screens, but on the screen that I'm looking at straight ahead is the presenter's view, and
yes,
then over to my right is the actual slideshow.
All right, so I got it now. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anyone else?
Yes, ma'am. Sister Belinda, and I apologize if it's a rhetorical question. Did we mention that we're going to be going over the tone scale in full, a different part of the tone scale each time we have a session?
I don't know how clear it was made. Let's see. Did you all believers understand that to be the case?
And do they understand the tone scale that we're on now? Do they understand or see that on the tone scale that was sent to them? Are they following along?
Sister Patricia.
I'm glad that was brought up, because I was sitting here looking at, because I was thinking back at what I read and went over in the Dianetics course. Maybe I didn't pay attention. No, I think I seen it, but it seemed like it was mostly talking about the 0.1. So why, I mean, is the 40 a serious, I mean, they're all serious, but I'm just saying you're talking about the 40 plus to the 40 negative. Or maybe I shouldn't say it like that, but that's the way it looks, 40 plus, and then you got a negative 40. Is that the key of all our emotional is in the 40? Do that make sense? Is it in the 40 scale of all our emotional and feelings? Because I know there's steps in the book. It says 0.1, 0.5, but this must be in a different course about the 40, because I don't recall this in the Dianetics book.
Right. This was given in another book But that's why this is called the tone scale in full, because the first book gives us a different tone scale with just a few of the gradients, the steps on it. So this is going to cover the entire emotional tone scale that was presented in Scientology.
And that's the target area of the full tone scale to help you.
Right, to help us identify, because we were saying anything below body death, we say is the Black man's condition in the wilderness of North America.
Yes,
so we're trying to identify all of these lower tone scales and then work our way up. And because the ultimate goal, well, I won't say ultimate, 40, tone 40 is a good place to be, but we know the minister said there's more. But tone 40 is where you want to be if you're going to go by this scale. That's
so
serenity of beingness.
So you're working with the negative to get to the positive.
Correct.
Right. Because we don't want to leave. We don't want to start out this series really, really high and then bring you all the way down to total failure.
Okay.
So, right. We'd rather start at the negative and identify it, work on it, and bring ourselves up and up and up. And the goal is to stay up. So we don't want to start at the high and then bring everybody down and take the risk of getting stuck down there. We don't want to pull a Lot's wife down there.
I didn't want to be elementary with the question. I just want to make sure I have the proper understanding and it's broken down. Sometimes things have to be broken down to me in the lowest terms so I can have understanding. Because see, this terminology that's being used, if I haven't got to that point, I'm like, huh? What? So, that's why I try, please forgive me if I'm keep asking questions like this. I'm just making sure I have understanding.
Oh man, that's what this is all about. And you said you made me think of the beloved math when we have to find that common denominator. So yes, ma'am.
We're doing that tomorrow.
Looking forward to that. Yeah.
Well, Sister Belinda, if you can pull up page 106 of Scientology 0 to 8 Book of Basics, that's where the full tone scale is.
Okay.
And I would just like to add that, Sister Charlotte, we're acknowledging your hand in a few minutes, beloved.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your patience, beloved.
Not a problem.
Okay. I'm over here in slow-mo. Okay, Dianetics. And which one is it, Brother Lukman?
It's Scientology 0 to 8, the Book of Basics. You have that one?
Okay, I do. Yes, sir.
And it's page 106. 106, I think, and 107, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, let's put this over. Can you all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so we got the emotional tone scale expanded.
I think that's it right there.
In full. Oh, it's got that no to not know scale. Yes, that's it. Okay. A little extra up in there. There's that body death.
And there's the Black community right there.
Yep. Failure, pity, shame. So inshallah, we will next time hit can't hide and take it from there.
Any questions regarding this scale that we're now looking at?
Well, I kind of have a question. You had mentioned an email containing the tone scale, and I haven't, was that something that was mailed out or is to come? Because I didn't receive any information and I would love to have this version of the tone scale.
I sent it this morning, maybe around 10 a.m.
No, ma'am, I don't have
No,
anything.
didn't get it? Okay.
No, ma'am.
So we'll just send it out again. And when Brother Lukeman has a chance, he'll send it to his list.
That's probably why she didn't get it. I didn't see it, but then again, that's probably because I was at work and didn't see it, but let me double check and make sure I have it.
Yeah, and I thought I sent it to Sister Charlotte this morning, but you know.
I didn't receive it either, Sister.
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
wow. Hmm.
Yes,
Sister
I didn't either.
I think I got it. I saw something with a attachment, emotional tone scale.
Yes, ma'am.
Sister Charlotte, is there anything else, beloved?
No, ma'am. Oh, I'm sorry. I will lower my hands.
Okay, Sister Tina, your hand is up, beloved.
Yes, ma'am. And it was just something that came to me very regarding the tone scale. It's positive, well, 40.0 on the upside, and then the negative, the lowest is 40.0 on the downside. Is that how it goes?
Negative 40. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, negative 40. I don't know what I said. Negative 40. Yes.
Yeah.
It just the 40 made me think of chapter 40 in the Holy Quran, the believer. And I'm going to read that chapter because of the 40 being that number. Because up on the tone scale, positive 40 is where the minister is, and beyond. The minister is beyond that. So, you know, we can go beyond that, but negative 40, that would be a disbeliever. So it's making me look at it from that level when we don't follow what the minister is giving us, you know, to get us to the other side. That makes us a disbeliever in what he's giving us because we're not following it, or we just stop, you know, following him because we don't agree. So we don't believe. So that takes us down to the negative 40 level where we're not going to be successful, total failure, you know. So yes, ma'am, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, praise be to Allah. Yeah, I'm gonna settle on the best part. I'm gonna say a weak believer, maybe.
A weak believer.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm trying to give them a little grace when you say
Yes, ma'am.
just
Yes,
flat
ma'am.
out
Yes,
disbeliever.
yes, ma'am. Negative 40. But our people, if the negative 40 is our people, they cannot believe what they never heard.
That's right.
So they would be disbelievers because they never heard it.
That's right.
But once we do the work and they hear it, then they have the choice of being a believer or not. Then they can become a weak believer if they even start believing in the first place. So that's why I said a disbeliever, because I was a disbeliever because I never heard this.
That's right.
You know, so yes, ma'am. So that's yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You know I was messing with you.
Oh, okay. No, I didn't, but now I know. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Sister Belinda.
Yes, ma'am. And yeah, and we did talk about that earlier about the definitions, the differences between the disbeliever, unbeliever, polytheism. Yes, ma'am.
Lost
Now, when
found.
you say earlier, y'all had another meeting yesterday, and there was a Zoom yesterday or something?
Oh, no, ma'am. We had one of the slides we had I think it was message to the Blackman or
Oh, yes.
yeah, we had
Yeah,
talked
sister,
about.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, Sister Tina, she was referring to the STW team was meeting yesterday.
Oh, okay. So I said, how did I miss that?
It was the STW team.
Okay, yes.
We wouldn't have left you out, Sister Tina.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Although my email capabilities were a little jacked this morning, so inshallah, we will get everybody the tone scale in full document.
I know. I just noticed, sister. I did get the tone scale. Let me check this.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. But we'll make sure you get it, Sister Charlotte, and anyone else on here who does not have it. So do we have anything else? If not, we're gonna go into our.
I do have another question.
And then,
I see a couple of hands.
and
Yeah.
then Brother Lukman after Sister Charlotte.
Thank you.
Where will the recording of this be uploaded to, or will it be sent to our email, or is there a particular website to go back and review?
Yes, ma'am. Inshallah, it will be on STW's YouTube page. I'll send that link out also.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Inshallah. Since I messed up the the tone scale email. Brother Lukman.
Just real quick. Along with that negative tone scale, one thing that L. Ron Hubbard did say is that we can oscillate between tones throughout the day. So we can actually find ourselves perhaps down in that negative region. You know, if someone comes and says or does the wrong thing, we can find ourselves there for a split second. And then we got to do what we can do to kind of get back out of that area. And the last thing is, are we saying that there is that the disbeliever and the unbeliever are the same?
Are we?
Brother Lukman,
No.
Brother Lukman, didn't you clarify that earlier with your Arabic definition?
Well, in Arabic,
It's the same, right?
both are listed the same. But when if we look at it, a person can't disbelieve until they're actually offered the option.
That's right.
So even though the Arabic word is describing both people, the disbeliever and the unbeliever, when you really look at it, a person that has never heard the truth can't be considered a disbeliever because they haven't been given an option to believe or not to believe.
Correct.
We can look at it at 3 levels. We can say the believer, or we can look at it 4 levels. We can look at the believer, we can look at the unbeliever, the disbeliever, and then the hypocrite.
Hypocrite.
Maybe those are 4 flows. Who knows?
That's right.
Mhm. And speaking of
So-
that,
So what about the word lost found?
They would be an unbeliever. They haven't had a chance to believe yet.
Right.
They haven't had the opportunity to go either way yet.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I can see that because this means like you want this. Okay, what does the prefix dis actually mean?
Apart.
It means what?
It could also mean not, like dissimilar, disassociate.
Okay. So disbeliever could also mean not believer because I never heard it. As unbeliever. I'm just, you know. pondering.
A disbeliever sounds more like someone who heard it, but they just don't believe it.
Right.
You know, they heard it. Okay, I gave this to you. You had the choice. You either had a choice to believe it or not to believe it. You chose not to believe it. Well, now you're a disbeliever. But if you never had the option, the way I'm looking at it is I can't call you a disbeliever because you didn't have the option, because you might have believed if you heard it.
Right. It's like I disbelieve in the Atkins diet. They presented it to me and I'm a disbeliever in that.
Okay.
And each one of them have to be handled different, because when you're dealing with a person with all those different state of mind, you can't handle them one way. You got to handle them different, because if they're a person who don't know and you present yourself in a harsh way, they won't never know, because they'll fall back from you from listening.
Yes.
So you have to handle them different. All 4 states of it: unbeliever, hypocrite, believer. All that has a different approach. Because
Yes,
the whole duty of a Muslim is to teach and to be able to help the people and pull them to the teachings. So
That's
if you
right.
don't handle them properly, they'll never know.
Man.
Thank you, sis. And Brother Rashid, thank you for your patience, sir. You have the floor.
Yes, ma'am. I'm getting a different perspective here, because I'm looking at the word believer. Okay. So if you're an unbeliever, meaning no longer. If you're a disbeliever, you know how somebody diss you, being someone who is opposing to the belief. And then I'm saying, when we was categorizing unbeliever as like a lost found, I see that as a category of those who have not heard. But if you are defined as a believer, then that means that you did believe, and now you no longer believe.
Well, that's hypocrite.
Or yeah. Well, yeah, and even more so, I guess a higher degree of hypocrite is the disbeliever, is the one who now even opposes the belief system, who outright speaks against it and tries to tear it down. So I'm saying, yeah, I'm seeing it a little bit different because of that word believer is incorporated in the statement itself, in the word itself. You might get any feedback on that?
So what are you saying? You're saying that disbeliever is what now?
Brother Rashid, Sister Belinda is asking you a question regarding your.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was on mute. Okay, I apologize. Thank you, sister. The word believer in each one of these words, unbelieving, disbeliever, puts you in the category of a believer. But now you don't believe. You're unbeliever. And then if you're a disbeliever, that's someone who opposes the belief that they believed at one time, who tries to tear it down or just say that this is totally not true. Like you said, the hypocrite.
Yeah.
And then when we say lost found, I can see that as someone who never heard. So they were never a unbeliever or a disbeliever. They just they did not get categorized yet.
Yeah, I don't think we can speak in them maybe with absolutes, because like I used the diet as an example. Someone presents me with the Atkins diet, I disbelieve in that, but I'm not trying to tear it down. You can do it if you want to, but I just disbelieve in it. So if I disbelieve in Islam, I'm not trying to tear it down. Just you do you, I do me. So that just makes me a disbeliever in what is being offered to me. Now, once I try and tear it down, then that's, that's a whole nother, I don't know what that is, but a hypocrite is, I believed at one point.
Antagonistic towards it.
Yes, yes. But if I believed at one point, and then I don't believe anymore, and now I'm trying to tear it down, I'm covert, I'm all in the ranks and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, then I'm a hypocrite.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but then there are gradients, I believe, of all of them.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's a whole nother tone scale, ain't it?
Yeah.
Gradient
Yes,
scale
it
of belief.
And brother
Yeah.
Rashid, just know that, you know, Allah is feeding all of us. And we all have our interpretation, and no one will ever be invalidated on this session. So we receive what you said, and we appreciate your participation, sir. And great
Yes,
perspective.
ma'am.
Thank you for your perspective, sir.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it, because the word believer is in all of them.
Yeah.
But I can see brother's viewpoint on the person that never heard, because let's add this one little point. They never heard, but they might believe.
That's right.
You know, but they just never heard. So someone can be a Christian. We can't automatically say that they're unbeliever.
You're right.
They just never heard. So
Can I ask?
on one level, you can't categorize someone who's never heard, but you don't know.
Right.
So I can see that viewpoint as well.
Sister Zaki, I just saw your comment, and I was gonna let you know that you were up next.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. It's loud in here, so if I'm interfering, I do apologize. I can't really, you know, I'm trying to multitask at work, but
We understand. You're good, Queen.
I look at Muslims for I'm hoping I'm on the same content, but like Muslims versus believers. You know, we born Muslim by nature, right? And so, but do they accept or understand the teachings? Have they committed themselves? I think it's like another level of belief system. Believers, we know, have no doubt in my mind, in our mind, you know. So I'm looking at it in that sense. Lost found, that like you were speaking on, Dr. Luke, my brother Lukeman, you know, found now lost, because there's no such thing as found. There's no such thing as found now lost. It's only lost and found. So our lost found brothers and sisters will be coming into the light or the knowledge of. So that's just how I look at that, you know. And hypocrite, you already broke that down. So, all right, I'm good. I'm like,
Brother Luke, we've called you the Godfather. We called you doctor. So now we're waiting to elevate to the honorable.
Nah, but I got a long way to go for that one, brother. Maybe next
pump the brakes.
Huh? Nah. But I will say the last piece. If we take belief and we line it up with the tone scale, I think we could each admit that each one in here has varying degrees of belief. Because none of us are 100% yet.
Yeah, and that's
because one meal a day is a part of belief, and not all of us are on one meal a day. And I'm you know, you point the finger, you got 3 point back at yourself. So that's why I'm saying that.
Yes, sir.
Brother Rashid, were you trying to interject something, sir?
I think it was breaking up.
We got computer love coming from you, brother.
Computer love.
Yeah, computer love, sir.
Big time computer.
Really? We hear instruments, sir.
You got a bad location.
We can't hear you, Brother Rashid.
No, sir. Can you change the location, sir?
Dropped altogether. He dropped.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so we've been talking about lost found, and I always want to know, you know, we say, you know, they're out there, they're lost found. Okay, so I was lost and found, but at what point do you stop being a lost found? You know, I'm a believer, but if he came to find all of us, I'm still a member of the lost found. So I think we look at it as if it's I don't know. I just look at it as I'm still a member of the lost found nation of Islam. I'm not a no longer lost found because I've accepted the teachings, but maybe like here we go with those gradients again. Maybe I'm a little
It's all
step
great.
higher.
I agree. I agree. It makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
Yeah.
Looking at it like that, Sister Belinda, keeps us humble.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So I cringe sometimes when we, we really separate ourselves from the lost found, but I'm like, not so fast.
Right,
Not-
right.
Because some of us act like believers during Savior's Day, but we get back home and we back acting like lost found again.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Or we
Praise
acting like righteous believers right now, but as soon as the screen goes off, we go back to being lost found again.
That's
Mhm.
right. Yes, sir.
I mean, that's just reality.
That's real.
So
That's
it does
real.
keep us humble because none of us have arrived yet.
No, sir.
Praise. All right. So if we don't have anything else, we're going to hit that end of session. It is afternoon.
Now
One
we're
more
doing
question.
this once a month or
Oh,
once a
good.
week.
This is like,
Here-
Sister Zakir has another
Yeah.
question,
Yes,
beloved.
yes, please. I remember, no, okay, isn't knowledge power? And years ago, you rather have a pocket full of money or a pocket full of knowledge. And once we gain knowledge, which is power, it takes you to another level in consciousness, your characteristics, your mindset, your attitude, your way of living will start to change. That's why we can come to the mosque the way we are, but can't stay that way. Because once we get into this refined way of life, you don't want the old part, right? So
Yeah.
I look at that in that sense of lost and found, because you can't take away what you now know. I used to be a technician and install, I work with Wi-Fi. And even though I'm no longer at that job, doesn't mean I can't do side jobs and still hook up people's cable and deal with, bringing down the dial tone and fiber optics, right? So I still have it. So I think
Yes.
once we have it, we just apply it, utilize it. And, I don't know. That's all.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, beloved.
Beautiful, Sister Zakir. Thank you. Thank you for that,
Yeah.
sis.
Yes,
Beautiful.
ma'am. Somebody come.
Alaikum salam. Anyone else? All right, Sister Jacqueline,
Sister
can you do
Tina?
us?
Oh, no, ma'am. I
Oh,
was just
Sister Tina.
reflecting. I was just reflecting on what Sister Zakia just said. Knowledge. Yeah, because in the Holy Quran, at some point it says that when we go back, it'd be like we knew nothing. I'm paraphrasing. Does anyone remember that? I'm paraphrasing that, but yeah. Okay, I was just reflecting.
It sounds familiar.
Mhm.
But yeah, Brother Lukman, you had asked about the frequency.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Sister Belinda, Brother Luke. Sister Tina, that could be homework, beloved. You can bring it back to us the next session, please. If you don't
Yes.
mind, beloved.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Queen.
So with the with the work involved
That's the setup.
in getting it together, I don't know if I can pull it off more than once a month. I really don't. I'm trying to get I gotta get my my teammate over here all
Yes,
PDF'd up.
yes, ma'am. We know 75% of the work is with the woman, so we're trying to get in where we can fit things in.
That's right. So right now it's gonna be inshallah July 18th. We will grace these screens with Can't Hide, inshallah. If we have any pop-ups in between that, we'll be sure to inform everyone. You know how they do nowadays, the pop-ups.
And we may want to extend to the Godfather. He probably already know if there's one of the emotions on the tone scale as we go forward. If he want to, you know, be the host of that day, you're more than welcome, Godfather.
I'm just here to support my family. I already feel like I was talking too much as it was, but
Not at all. Not at all.
I enjoy being around the believers.
Praise be to God. We enjoy having you, sir. We enjoy it. So if that is it, we're going to do end of session.
And is Brother Lukman available to do the closing prayer?
Yes, I could.
Okay, thank you. Family, let's please take a moment to prepare ourselves for end of session, please. Thank you. Rapidly sketch over the session just ended. Begin. Thank you. Sketch over what you have been doing again with particular attention to how you have been sitting. Begin. Thank you. Go over the period of the session with regard only to what you have been doing with your hands and things in the exterior world you have heard during this session. Begin. Thank you. Fix your attention upon a pleasant object near you now. Begin. Thank you. And family, let's continue to pray for each member participating in the session, our families and the believers. Also continue to believe and do good. And we thank you all for your great participation today. And I turn it over to Brother Lukman. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Sister Catherine.
Thank you, ma'am.
Attention prayer. Seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the beneficent and merciful. All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the beneficent, the most merciful. Master the day of judgment which we now live, thee alone do we serve, and aid do we seek. Please, Allah, guide us on the straight path, the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor those who go astray to hear thy teaching. Ameen.
Ameen.
Ameen. Thank you, family.
Thank
Until
you.
next time.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
Beautiful
Beautiful. Great
Thank
session.
you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Walaikum salam.
What'd you say, Sister Belinda?
I said, wa alaikum salam.
Do I get to wear a ring now and be a godfather? Is that how it works?
Kiss the ring.
Few more sessions, sir.